Hi, friends. It's IDM, and I'm in the virtual room today with Andreja Kovac. Nice to meet you, Andrea. I hope I got your name right.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So, Andrea, you are the artistic director at Crane Creations, but also manage a really wonderful festival that's happening in Mississauga, Ontario. But for folks who are not familiar with your work and Crane Creations, what can you tell us about yourself and the company?
I am a theater director by trade. I was born in Slovenia, where I finished my theater training and worked there professionally before immigrating to Canada in 2012 and going to National Theatre School in Montreal to pursue Canadian education and directing. And then that's where the idea of Crane Creations was born, actually, in the artistic direction class at the National Theatre School. So once I graduated in 2014, I've actually started the company a year later, 2015. So this year is Crane's 10th anniversary. And
Congrats.
the company has gone really far since. We now have 6 employees. We manage a 200-seat venue, have another studio location, organize a puppet festival, and so many other things.
Were you so you were always interested in directing? Was that something that you always wanted to do? And what was your first love of theater? When did that happen?
When I was very, very little, actually, me and 6 friends of mine, when we were very little, we were like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, started our first theater company. And we wrote a play about how winter kidnapped spring, and then all the flowers and rabbits have to go and liberate spring so that things can go as according to plan with nature. So that was our first production. It was really, because at the time, half of us didn't know how to read or write. So we would basically very seriously sit on a hill behind one of my friend's house with like this script, handwritten script in our hand, and study the script like we're memorizing lines, even we actually couldn't read it.
I love that. I always want to know where people start with their love of arts because that's, I think, always informs like into our adult years. And I'm guessing that's still part of Crane Creations because you do work with for younger audiences as adult audiences. So, um, what are some of the shows that Crane Creations has been responsible for?
We predominantly work as a presenter right now, but we also are a producer. So as a presenter, we predominantly present puppetry, bringing international and Canadian puppetry. As a producer, we recently developed a new original Canadian musical that includes puppets. It was a co-production with a European company, and they helped us build the puppets. We premiered the show there, actually, and now we've played more than 50 shows of this all across Ontario. The show is called Mirror, and it's written by an emerging Canadian playwright who is also our actor and producer, Eugenia De Jong. Actually, as we are speaking right now, they're playing a show in North York.
Of course. So, what is it about puppetry that you love?
I love the fact that because it's a visual medium that has its own dramaturgy, it should speak to everyone regarding of a linguistic barrier. Majority of the puppetry around the world is wordless. A lot of it, it's just the storyline happens. How are you manipulating the object, and how is the story developed through object?
Right.
North American version of puppetry through Muppets, it's very talkative,
Yeah.
but the puppetry technique, majority of it around the world is visual. And that's why I really like, because as an immigrant to this country, I was always self-conscious about my accent and language, and I know a lot of immigrants are. And puppetry is a wonderful art form that can bridge that really, really well. It's not just for children, it's for adults as well, but it puts our imagination in the front seat of the driver. We don't have to worry about whether we have understood the text correctly. And it kind of triggers a different part of our brain when we're watching a puppet show. The imagination really starts to work because you're building your own story as you're watching one moment in the play and another action of the puppet.
I know I love puppet shows and I mean since childhood. And I guess that's also informed the festival that is currently happening, the Puppet Fest in Mississauga. So tell us a little bit about it. I know it's a rebrand and it became the Puppet Festival in Mississauga last year. So what can folks expect from such a festival?
We basically bring shows from all across the world and Canada to the festival. So we find really good puppeteers and really interesting shows and curate the shows around a single theme, but introducing different types of puppetry. The shows are all technologically complex, so each of them performs in a different venue. There's 5 locations that the festival takes place on this year, and we are presenting both traditional puppetry techniques, like for example, this year we have a wonderful more than 200-year-old technique from Thailand, which originated from the temples and was presented at the royal court, and it's their first time being presented in North America. But we also have contemporary techniques which use object theater or really simple everyday objects to turn them into puppets. We have a wonderful show called Strict Minimum this year, where a puppeteer uses just 2 gloves and turns them into characters that just makes us smile and laugh and wonder and be super nostalgic about things. It's marvelous what that visual medium can do.
I was going to ask you, I don't think it's a fair question, but what are some of or how do you go about selecting these shows? Because you can't pick everything you see. So how do you narrow down your list?
That's a very good question. And we actually have 3 methods of curation for the festival. The first method is I get invited to quite a lot of festivals across Canada and around the world and watch the shows that go to really prominent festivals, and then we bring them here. In Canada specifically, this would be Festivals Castellier in Montreal and FIAMS in Saguenay. And internationally, it can be festivals in Europe, it can be festivals in America or in Asia. We also attend Unima Congress. Next one is going to be this summer in South Korea. So it really is bringing high quality shows. The second method of curation is we always have an open call on our website. So anyone who has a puppet show that's ready for the audience can pitch their show. We are requesting them to basically send us a full video that's from one standing point of the camera, that we get a really good audience view how that looks like, and a technical writer for the show so that we can see if our venues can accommodate. The third method is sometimes we have artists approaching us when they're in an early stage of development and they're looking for a co-producer or a residency. So we do that as well. We partner with companies who would come to us and would like to develop a show, and we offer them our space and our technical support, and then we premiere the show at the festival.
So it's a mix. It's a
Yes.
complete mix. So how does so that's the process, but how do you narrow down your list? Because how many shows are there this year?
This year we're
Or
having
10?
7 shows at the festival, but in a given year we see probably 200 plus.
Sure, yeah. I'm thinking it's similar to maybe programming a film festival, and you see lots of short films, for example.
Exactly. So the process is we're looking at 3 different criteria. One is the fabrication of the puppet
Oh,
and
yes.
what has gone into the design and the engineering of the puppet, how much artistry is there in the engineering of the puppet, and how well suited is it for the type of the story that the puppeteer is going to tell. The second thing we're looking at is the story and the dramaturgy and how it uses the puppetry type of building a story rather than just using puppets as a stand-in for a theater story. That's not quite the thing. So it's
Right.
how does it build the story development through a visual world? And the third criteria is the criteria that pertains to animation. So
Yeah.
how well versed is the animator in actually manipulating the puppet, making us feel like the puppet is alive. So all of these 3 criteria are the artistic criteria. And then, of course, there's practicalities, because there are many shows we would like to bring, but they're either too expensive or the dates don't work out, or we don't have the type of venue they need. Either they need a bigger space, smaller space. So then it's the practicalities. How do we stitch all of that together? And sometimes it takes a few years before we actually manage to get the show. Like the show from Thailand that we're presenting this year in 2025, we wanted to present in 2019, but the
Yes,
pandemic prevented
of
them to
course.
travel at that time. So sometimes it takes a while, but once we find the show that we really like, we try to make sure that we at some point are able to bring it.
Right. And that is Ramayana. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes, it's a specific story part of Ramayana. It's the adventures of Hanuman, which of course is a very mischievous monkey character. He is a very big savior of the world and a big traveler. A lot of stuff happened to Hanuman. It's a very interesting take on a particular part of Ramayana, because of course Ramayana is a massive story. I think it
Yes.
would take a week to stage the whole thing if you would want it to, but this is a small portion of it.
And in terms of the festival, because I know it caters to different age groups from little ones to older fans, what are the ranges of length for the shows?
We go by what is the appropriate time for each age based on school curriculums and psychological guidelines. So
Mhm.
for children who are like under 3 years of age, we recommend that the show is not longer than 35 minutes because it
Right.
becomes really difficult for them to focus after that. Once they're older than 3 years, it can be about 45 to 50 minutes. It's not a good idea if it's more than that. And once they're past 8 years of age, so once they've started going to school and they learn how to have a longer attention span, then it can be showed that's slightly longer than an hour, let's say an hour 10, an hour 20. But if it's much longer than hour and 10, then it's best if the show has an intermission so that they're able to go and get a pee or, get a refreshment and then come
Right.
back.
I mean, for us adults too, right?
Very true.
We all
Yes.
need a little bit of a break from sitting down these days. So the festival runs this whole week of March break in Mississauga. And if people want to stay in touch in terms of other productions that might be coming up, are you offering anything later in the year? I know that there's the school side of things too, but outside of that.
We do have puppetry workshops and acting workshops that run throughout the year, and we present puppetry performances on and off at the theater or different locations around the city throughout the year as well. Our venue is also rented to a lot of wonderful, diverse groups that organize events in it, and you can find information about those on our website as well. So we have South Asian dance, we have a wonderful Arabic jazz orchestra, which has phenomenal concerts happening every 3 months. We have chamber music. There's all sorts of things happening. Local theaters as well. There's Czech theater, there's Serbian theater, there's Egyptian stand-up. There's a lot of stuff going on at the theater.
So it's a busy place in general.
Yes, 2 to 4 times a week, at least there's something happening.
Okay, that's nice to hear. Because I mean, some of us sometimes are in the GTA, but we don't always venture outside of our own kind of grid. And it's nice to hear that there's so much art happening, even west of us. Curious about accessibility in terms of the festival that's happening this week, whether there's any sort of content that we need to be aware of, flashing lights, those sort of things.
The all the venues, first of all, except one, are fully accessible for people who have mobility challenges. They're all on flat surfaces. The one that is not on a flat surface directly has a disability elevator that if you give us a call before the show, we're able to accommodate a person. Majority of the venues where we perform are also equipped for people who have visual impairment,
Yes.
and we're able to accommodate that as well. As far as the content warning for the shows, each show has a slightly different topic. There is no flashing lights in the shows that we have this year. Some of them might have a little bit of a darker lighting in certain moments because they want to focus on some particular time of the show. And, we understand that sometimes it's the first time for children in the theater, and if they
Yes.
get a little bit nervous, don't worry about that. Maybe seat them in your lap so that they can feel safe and secure and get used to the fact that the lights go down and they will also come back up. We usually leave a little bit of lights turned on in the room for the shows that have very, very young audiences, just so that they don't feel very nervous that all of a sudden gets very dark. The shows have music involved, most of them. It's not any loud sounds that would
Right.
be scaring anyone, and there isn't any content that would be requiring trigger warning. Like most of the shows have content that is visual, so there is very
Yes.
little language based, and the storylines are appropriate for the ages that the stories are for.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, I kind of figure with puppetry, I almost prefer that there's not a lot of talking because I do like getting lost in the story, like you mentioned. So I'm sure that parents and kids would appreciate that just the same.
Like, I can give you a hint about
Yes.
a specific thing that's going to be happening that we're just technologically figuring out now because we've gotten the task from Thailand about this. There's going to be some flying stones happening.
Oh, that's fun. Again,
I know.
technological stuff that you need to consider. A lot of us won't notice when we're sitting in the show, but a lot of the planning that happens behind the scenes can be a
Yeah.
little bit more involved, I'm sure.
This time it's specifically involved because the airlines have changed the rules regarding luggage, which I'm sure
Oh,
everybody has
sure.
experienced who travels. But for shows, it becomes there's restrictions on how much luggage you can take, and some companies bring the puppets in their luggage because they're afraid they will get
Sure.
destroyed. So it's gotten trickier what they can pack. And instead, what we do, we offer them to build certain props here in order to relieve the travel requirements. So this is how we're solving the flying rocks right now.
That makes sense. But it's nice to hear. So that's part of also what you do with Crane Creations, that you're able to build. Like you said, you do have workshops. So people are, you can be doing things in-house as much as artists bring in their own props.
Yes,
And go ahead.
the show always comes with the requirements. What is it that they need with a technical writer? And there's vast differences. Like some shows can be set up in 2, 3 hours, and some
Yeah.
shows require 2 days to build. Like this year, we have a show from Quebec, which is called Cuckoo, and it's a
Mm,
really giant cuckoo clock. We're basically watching a bird inside its cuckoo clock, what it does, what its
yes.
daily life looks like. So the cuckoo clock has to be built on stage and travels to us. And some shows have a rather fast changes from one show to another, but we never ask the show to adapt technologically in order to lose anything that's integral artistically to the show. We always try to find a way how to accommodate all of the shows. So that's part of the curation process too.
That makes sense. I haven't had a chance to look at all of the schedule listings, but I am curious, are all of the shows available at different times through the day? So in case people have, running around to do, they can catch one show at one time and another show at a different time.
Exactly. Each show plays twice. Usually
Hmm.
we try to do like a morning or afternoon show and then an evening one to see when it accommodates people best. When do they have time to do it?
Okay, that's great to hear. So for anyone who's wondering, the website is quaintcreations.ca. I'm gonna make sure it's tagged in the description so people know where to go. Andrea, thank you so much for your time. I know you're in the middle of the festival, so
My
you're always
pleasure.
busy. You're always busy. That goes without saying. We're gonna keep in touch through the website and social media in case anyone has any questions or they're curious. They can always reach out to you, I guess.
Yes, and I do have a warning. This is going to be going on the website very quickly, but 2 shows are sold out at this point.
Oh, okay, okay. I did notice one was sold out, but now it's two. So that's good
Yeah,
to know. So
it's
I
going
guess keep
fast.
in touch with going to the website and social so you're aware what show is available and what time.
Perfect.
Okay,
Exactly.
excellent. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thank you. We'll see you at the show.
Yes, thanks.